Greetings and welcome back to Gadfly Academy. Today we continue our book study of Paul Kingsnorth's Against the Machine on the Unmaking of Humanity. As always, I'm really pleased to have you join us. Today I am going to offer a few reflections on chapters 7 and 8. Hi there, quick ad for the You Are Not a Machine Gadfly Academy merch store, which is now open. You can find the link in the show notes. We have t-shirts like this one. Lighter colored hoodies. So all sorts of great stuff. Coffee mugs, hats, etc. So if you are looking for Christmas gifts for the tech skeptic in your life, the merch store is the place to go. And if you want to support this work too. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the video. So in chapter 7, Kingsnorth looks at the philosophical and spiritual foundations of the scientific revolution and some of the consequences of the society built on its foundation. Kingsnorth's opening metaphor is illustrative. The difficulty that humans have to create an artificial environment for fish in a fish tank is a miniature version of our unsuccessful attempt to treat the earth in a similar fashion, as a problem that we are to solve, quote unquote, as a project that requires improvement, quote unquote. Like his son's fish, who is on the brink of death, so humanity finds itself reaping the consequences of hundreds of years of tinkering, exploitation, and generally poor management. Here's a quote from the book. The premise is that the living web of nature can best be understood not as anima, but as techne. And if we can understand how it works, we can manage it ourselves, or better still, build ourselves a more effective and more human-centered version. End quote. It's from page 66. So, is the world alive, or is it simply dead matter, waiting for humans to manipulate? I want to believe that most humans' intuition tells them that the earth is in some sense alive, and that there is more to reality than simply what meets the eye and that science can discern. This in many ways gets to the heart of the matter. If materialism is true, then ultimately there is no problem to be solved. There is no, quote, right or wrong way to act, and everything is up for grabs. If, however, nature is alive, and if we are simply part of a larger narrative, then it becomes incumbent upon ourselves to try to properly understand our role in relation to the environmental and physical reality in which we find ourselves enmeshed. The great modern experiment has been to use the powerful levers of science and its handmaiden technology to attempt to extricate humans out of our connection with the physical world. Here's another quote from the book. The philosopher Mary Midgley, in her book The Myths We Live By, asserts that post-Enlightenment science's desire to rationalize nature and thereby understand it is underpinned by a deep desire for control. End quote. It's from page 69. Consciously or subconsciously, modern scientists realize that the only way they could possibly hope to control the destiny of humanity is to move it into a kind of aquarium environment where they seemingly have control over all of the inputs. I wonder as well if this is at least part of the impetus behind the techno-futurists' desire to terraform Mars. It would give them the opportunity to create a, quote, perfected version of Earth. About halfway through the chapter, Kingsnorth quotes Philip Sherrard, and here it is from page 73. There is a price to be paid for fabricating around us a society which is as artificial and mechanized as our own, and this is that we can exist in it only on condition that we adapt ourselves to it. This is our punishment. Unquote. And that's just a direct quote from Sherrard. Again, if there is no fixed human nature, no animating principle to life, then Sherrard's use of the word punishment makes no sense. The reality, however, is that most of us, probably all of us if we were honest, have an intuition that we are square pegs being forced into round holes, that there are aspects to our lives that are dramatically underdeveloped and underappreciated. We are prisoners in the prison we have constructed for ourselves, and our muscles and bodies are atrophying from lack of use. Kingsnorth ends the chapter by considering the spirit that lies behind modern science and the technological revolution. Rather than accepting our limitations in our role in a larger story, through the use of modern science, humanity is trying to assert human will over nature. If one gives an honest appraisal, however, it's difficult to disagree with Philip Sherrard. And here his words again from page 77, quote, "It is difficult for us to admit that far from being an advance, the whole modern scientific project may be a ghastly failure. He," that is Philip Sherrard, concedes, and he goes back to the quote, "Yet there is no reason why it should not be. One has to judge things by their fruits, and one of the fruits of modern science, clear for all to see and implicit in the philosophy on which it is based, is the dehumanization both of man and of the society that he has built in its name." End quote. In Chapter 8, Kingsnorth considers the growth and consequences of the megalopolis. And I'll begin with a quote from page 83. Quote, "Once a structure, megalopolis, of this size and complexity has been created, it must be maintained. In the case of a modern city, this means that the surrounding lands, and then the lands further afield, must be colonized to supply it and its inhabitants, their whims and desires and needs. Like a black hole, a city sucks into its orbit everything around it, and a modern world city sucks in the world. The impacts of this are measurable. To take just a few examples, 75% of worldwide energy use is in cities, and energy demand is outstripping population growth as those cities expand." End quote. For most people, modern life is completely dependent on the grid, electric, water, and so on, upon which our world has been constructed. The more urban one's environment, the more true this is. Modern man's inability to care for himself and his family should be cause enough for concern. The many other consequences of the modern city are also incredibly worrying. Because most of the population lives in cities, there's no option but to colonize and exploit the lands outside the cities. It's a classic ailment of the modern world that the problem that it created, that is, completely dependent overpopulated cities, requires an industrial city-sized solution in the form of industrial agriculture, energy, and so on. The problem, of course, is that because none of this is at human scale, and because profit is the chief value, the new agriculture, energy, and so on solutions do not care for the earth as a human husbandman would. It's at best naive to be concerned about environmental degradation, but unwilling to actually live in and advocate locally for these areas of environmental degradation. Modern urban dwelling is, by definition, a colonialist project that neither serves colonists nor the colonized well. Here's another quote from Kingsnorth. It's actually, most of it's from Lewis Mumford. "The city itself becomes consumable, indeed expendable. The container must change as rapidly as its content. The latter imperative undermines a main function of the city as an agent of human continuity. The living memory of the city, which once bound together generations and centuries, disappears. Its inhabitants live in a self-annihilating moment-to-moment continuum. The poorest Stone Age savage," Mumford concludes, "never lived in such a destitute and demoralized community." End quote. It's from pages 85 and 86. So Lewis Mumford, as Philip Sherrard above, suggests that rather than progressing, human society has actually regressed. We have built an impressive technological society, but have lost sight of the forest for the trees. Quote-unquote community life has been reduced to constitute whatever relationship any particular person wants to have with one or more people at any given moment, just as the inhabitants of the modern city, quote, "live in a self-annihilating moment-to-moment continuum," end quote, as regards their physical spaces, so their personal lives are also continuously annihilated and reinvented. People from around the world flock to Europe to enjoy the old, beautiful cities that are still preserved there. Unfortunately, these are relics of a lost culture. But if we have the wisdom to learn from them, then there is hope for building beautiful things again. The heart of this project would necessarily be the beating heart of a vibrant and interdependent community. To build vibrant communities, however, we need to live our lives according to a different set of values than those of the machine world in which we find ourselves. So that is it for today. I hope you are enjoying Against the Machine and finding it that it provides a fresh perspective for understanding modern culture and history. As always, I'm really pleased to have you along for the ride, and I look forward to connecting with you moving forward. As always, please join us on Thursday evenings at 7:30 for our chronological book study of Kingsnorth's book on the Gadfly Academy YouTube channel. There's a link below for that. Also, if you'd like to join my thematic theological study of Kingsnorth's book, you can do that on most Mondays evenings as well at 7:30. And just a note, next Thursday is Thanksgiving, so we will not be doing it on Thanksgiving, nor on Christmas, which is also a Thursday. Finally, for a very limited time, and I actually am going to close the merch store relatively soon, you can purchase Gadfly Academy and You Are Not a Machine merch in time for Christmas. T-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, hats, and more. Great gifts for the tech skeptics in your life. Also a great way to start a conversation with your coworkers. And as always, if you haven't already, please sign up for updates and download the How Did We Get Here reading list at the link below. Have a great weekend, and we will see you again soon. Take care.